go, guys. Oh my gosh, that sun is blasting my ass off. Okay, this episode's not gonna be that long. It's only a couple pages, so I know you guys are all complaining about it not being long enough, so I'm thought of a good idea to make it a little bit longer. I have two haters. I won't tell you who. Liz and Gavin. I'm gonna spread a rumor about them somewhere in this episode, and you will narrowly be able to notice it. Have you been narrowly noticing things before? It's about to get narrowlied. Amen. Daniel King announced heartily as he drew Silent Grace to an end. He clasped his calloused hands together, looking across the kitchen table at Abigail. He was plump to his wife's slenderness, his gray hair cut short in a bowl cut, his beard long and gray. His gray eyes twinkled with kindness when he spoke. Looks good, Dochter. D-O-C-H-D-E-R. I bet it's Pennsylvania Dutch for doctor. Or maybe it's Dochter. Let's eat. I did a little plowing in the garden this afternoon and I'm hungry enough to eat this table. Jamie giggled. You can't eat a table, gross daddy. You'd get splinters in your mouth. Knock out some teeth. Only if the teeth were loose. Teeth. Daniel tousled his grandson's blonde hair. Like yours. Just this one, Jamie wiggled one of his front teeth with his finger. Not at the table, Abigail chastised as she put a pork chop smothered in gravy and onions on her mother's plate and then her son's. She passed the serving dish to her father. I knew a boy who once ate a table, June said, heaping cinnamon applesauce onto her plate. A big supper table we used to use for church dinners. 10 feet, I suspect. Chewed the boards to sawdust and had nary a splinter to swallow. They used the word nary. Oh my God, I'm psychic, man. I've never used that word. Why did I use it today? Probably because I'm reading this shit. Probably said it earlier. Jamie cut his eyes at his mother, but didn't contradict his grandmother. Instead, he began scooping the gravy and onions off his pork chop and dumping them onto his mother's empty plate. Abigail gave her mother and her son a serving of mashed potatoes, then passed the bowl to her father. Such good stuff. More gravy on the stove if anybody wants some. She glanced at her mother, who was now spooning applesauce onto her pork chop. She rested her hand on her mother's for a moment. You won't like that, ma'am, she said quietly. I like it, June declared loudly. They're dry. She dumped another spoonful on her pork chop. They're not dry, wife, Daniel put in, adding pats of fresh homemade butter to his potatoes. Abby makes a fine pork chop. Dry as the boards and the table that the boy Israel ate. June began putting applesauce on top of her mashed potatoes. This is the whole chapter. Abigail gently took the bald jar of applesauce from her mother and served her son. Not near the potatoes, Jamie complained, laying his hand across his plate. My day, Daniel said good-naturedly as he took the quart of the applesauce from his daughter. A boy ate what his mother put on his plate. That or he put his own food on his plate. You're old enough to get your own pork chop, boy. Abigail tried to spoon green beans onto Jamie's plate, but he held out his hand to her. I don't like green beans. No green beans. I'm only giving you 3. You can well eat 3 measly green beans, she said, irritation creeping into her voice. She wasn't upset with Jamie, of course. It was the teacher. It was Ethan Miller, who had been struggling to control her exasperation and think of him with kindness in her heart. She'd been stewing over him since he'd brought Jamie home. She still couldn't believe the nerve he had to come there and try to tell her how she could raise her son. You don't like green beans with bacon? Daniel scoffed. He took the serving bowl from Abigail. Suits me just fine. More for me. He put a healthy portion on his plate and then a smaller one on his wife's. Saw that teacher brought Jamie home. Spotted that dun of his from the garden, he remarked, directing his comment to Abigail. My grandson in trouble again? Abigail took a moment to gather her thoughts before she responded. She and her father got along well, but like all the parents and adult children, especially those living together, they had their disagreements. He had a lot to say about how she was raising her son and how much of it was critical. He thought she coddled Jamie, that he was immature, and that she expected too little of her boy. He'd actually used the word discipline the other day, the same word Ethan had used, which had annoyed her all the more. Men didn't understand the relationship between a woman and her only son, and neither knew what it was like to lose a spouse, to be raising a child alone. Abigail stalled, using the time to cut up Jamie's pork chop for him as she chose her words carefully. There was an incident at school today. Ethan wanted to talk to me about it. Naughty boy, June chastised, shaking her fork at her grandson. Abigail pushed Jamie's plate back to him and began to serve herself helpings of the green beans, pork chops, and potatoes. Then suddenly remembering that she had buttermilk biscuits in the oven, she rose from her chair. Oh goodness, the biscuits! I don't think that pesky timer is working. She hurried for the stove, grabbing a hot mitt from the counter. Liz likes my feet, and Gavin likes when Mark Bonanno does an Italian woman voice. Or man. What do you do, Jamie? Abigail's father asked. As Abigail opened the oven, she glanced over her shoulder, waiting to hear what her son would say. Jamie stared at his supper plate, his hands clasping. The kids are mean to me. They don't want to play with me at recess. He stuck out his lower lip. I want to go home to Maple Shade. Oh, Jamie, you know that's not possible. Abigail pulled the pan of biscuits from the oven. Luckily, she'd caught them before they began to burn. We sold our farm, remember? We live with your grandmother and grandfather now. We came to help them with the farm. What did you do? Her father repeated, putting a fork full of mashed potatoes into his mouth. Just like I like 'em. Lots of pepper. He eyed his grandson as he chewed and waited. After a long moment of silence, Abigail said, the schoolmaster said, Daughter, let my grandson tell me. He can speak. He has a mouth. Oh, you're in trouble now, June said quietly. She reached for the jar of applesauce again. Abigail dumped the pan of biscuits onto a plate and carried them to the table. You have to eat something besides applesauce, ma'am. She set the biscuits in the middle of the table and put one on her plate. He's in trouble, June responded, pointing at Jamie with a serving spoon that was heaped with applesauce. That handsome schoolteacher brought him home because he tipped over the outhouse. Girl inside. She plopped more applesauce on top of her potatoes. He didn't knock it over. Abigail gently took the spoon and the jar from her mother's hand and then slid into the chair. Go on, she encouraged. Tell your granddad what you did. The boy pressed his lips together, slowly looking up. I was trying to make a lever, like you showed me at the barn the other day when you were trying to get the cardboard under the rain barrel. I wanted to see if it would work. Abigail's father met her gaze, but he held his tongue. Though only until supper was over and Jamie had been excused, the boy took no time at all to race from the kitchen and out the back door, headed for the barn, he said, to feed the cats. So the schoolteacher had to bring him home this time, Daniel intoned as he carried a stack of dirty dishes to the sink. Because of his behavior? June had taken her position at the sink to wash. It was a chore she could still do well, and she liked it. Abigail had taken over most of the cooking, but she let her mother wash dishes, understanding that it was important that she still contribute to the household. Wasn't there a problem last week? Abigail's father pressed when she didn't respond. Abigail carried the leftover biscuits covered in a clean dish towel to the pie safe. Jamie told me he didn't know Elsie was inside when he started rocking the outhouse. Daniel left the stack of dirty dishes on the counter and went back to gather more. You believe him? Abigail hesitated as she tried to puzzle out her thoughts. She had caught Jamie in a few fibs from time to time, but she didn't want to believe he'd intentionally risk injuring someone and then lie to cover it up. Ethan believed Jamie had known the little girl was inside, which would mean Jamie had lied. Jamie didn't think Ethan would make up such a thing, which meant her son had told them an untruth. She had to face it. He's having a hard time, Dat. He misses his home, his friends. He still misses his Dat. But didn't you tell me he was having trouble in school before you moved here? Not getting along with the other children, not doing his lessons? Wasn't that one of the reasons why you decided not to stay in Wisconsin until the end of the school year? Abigail closed the pie safe and just stood there for a moment. Her stomach was in knots. She'd barely eaten. She didn't know what to say to her father. She didn't know what to do to help her son. She turned slowly to face him. It's a hard age. He could have hurt that little girl. Abigail took a handful of dirty utensils from her father's hand. I understand that, and I'm gonna talk to him. Her father stood there looking down at her. She knew he had more to say on that matter, but thankfully he didn't. Instead, he sat there quietly. I want to help you, daughter. I want to help Jamie. He's the only grandson I have. I know you do, she squeezed his arm. Why don't you go out and finish up your chores? Mom and I can take care of the dishes, she shrugged. Maybe take Jamie fishing in the pond for a little while. He loves fishing with you. Daniel nodded. I can do that. He turned to go, then back to her. But you know this isn't going to right itself on its own, do you? It's only going to keep getting worse. Something has to change. You keep doing the same thing and it doesn't work. You have to change your approach. I'll talk to him, Dad. Abigail did. Bit down on her lower lip, and I'll think on it. Figure out what I need to do differently. Her thoughts immediately returned to her conversation with Ethan. He'd threatened to expel Jamie. She couldn't let that happen. Schooling was too necessary, and she knew she couldn't teach him at home, not with the house and her mother to deal with. She closed her eyes for a moment, listening to her father's footsteps as he left the kitchen. She had been feeling overwhelmed for weeks. She had hoped that being there would make things easier for her and Jamie. She'd thought a change of scenery might help Jamie at school, but obviously she'd been wrong. Her first impulse had been to blame the school teacher, but now she felt bad. He was just doing his job, and she lashed out at him. She'd raised her voice, and now she owed him an apology. She just wasn't sure how to go about it. Chapter 2, done. And the sun went down at the same time. This is such a beautiful day for a beautiful book. Can you believe it? I'm such a book reading man.